December 3rd. So my dreams, I can only remember 2 distinct scenes. And then just the general environment. And it was, I was with my friend, a friend of mine. I've known him since junior high. Elementary, really. Elementary. And, I was visiting him. And we were gonna hang out. But he's getting ready, like suit and tie ready. And I'm just like, why are you getting ready? Why are you getting ready to come hang out with me? So I've known him since elementary, middle school, really. Like, you know, you had to put fifth grade, sixth grade, and we continue to be really good friends. And the environment that we were in, it was a Middle Eastern community. He's not Middle Eastern, but it was a Middle Eastern, like where he lived. Because I was walking to his place, and there were a lot of Middle Eastern women around walking. His wife is Middle Eastern, and I remember going in and just saying hi and wondering. There was this acknowledgement of like, oh, his wife's not here and his kids aren't here. It's just him. And we were gonna go hang out, but he was getting dressed in a suit and tie. I was like, why are you dressing up? We're just gonna go hang out. We used to so because we've known each other for a long time, we've gone through a lot together. Yeah. And in high school, like I've always known he liked me, and I remember in high school he tried to date me. I was like, no, I don't like you in that way. Like I just remember knowing, like, I don't like you in that way. But I remember he invited me out once, and I took my sister with me. And then we just kind of decided to be friends. He was friends with my ex. And when I met my ex, we were 15. He was 16. My ex was 16. I was 15. And it was at a quinceañera. And it's funny because the quinceañera we attended, she actually ended up being my sister-in-law, because she married my ex's brother. And but my friend was in it too, and he was my partner. And he actually had, like, I didn't go to the high school. I was a freshman at another school. And but because I still had ties to the community, I was asked to come and still be part of the quinceañera. So on Saturdays, you know, we do the whole practice and the vals, and you know, the waltz, and just, yeah. So he was my partner, and it was during that time actually that I don't remember if my ex told him that he liked me, I do remember my friend telling me, like, oh, did you go dance with so and so, or just kind of encouraging us. So I think once he knew that my ex liked me, he kind of stepped aside. But I was actually already dating someone else, but it was a long distance relationship, and he went to another high school, and so I it's funny, so many stories come up. So anyways, so so this friend, going back to it, let's bring back, I'm branching off to all these other stories. So this friend of mine, he actually, when I went back to that school, when I moved in June as a junior, I ran into him. He's like, hey, you're here. He's like, have you spoken to, you know, my ex? And I was just like, I remember he used his first name, his real name. I'm like, who's that? He's just like, so and so, and I'm like, no, like, what are you talking about? That's not his name. Because he was introduced at the quinceañera. He was introduced to me under a different alias, different name, and I'm like, I don't know who you're talking about. He's like, yeah, you do. And I'm like, no. And so then after I was just like, oh, do you mean so and so? And he's just like, yeah. So I'm like, I didn't know that was his real name. And so I said, no, I haven't spoken to him. And he's like, oh, you should say hi. And yeah. So it kind of helped in that sense of like encouraging us to say hi. But this friend, we liked each other at different times. I don't know if he knows that I liked him at a different time. Yeah. But it was just wrong timing, because he was already in a relationship at that point, I think, and I was remembering what were some of the things that I was attracted to about him, and I liked that he was ambitious. I liked that he was a risk taker. Like I knew he had gone through a lot of challenges in his life, and he still got up, and he didn't let that bring him down. Not to say that he didn't completely, like, the beginning is always difficult, you know, when you're first going through your challenges. You know, he and I were both bullied at different levels of intensity and extremes, and and that was really difficult. That was really difficult for us. Yeah. And so when we were younger, but I just admired his drive, his ambition, his confidence. He was borderline cocky almost. I think that was the only thing that kind of turned me off initially, but then that subsided as he got older. That subsided, and I just, yeah. So it was just interesting that I dreamt about him. I didn't go to bed thinking about him. I just dreamt about him, and we hung out a lot in college, in undergrad, mostly because we worked together too. So there was a group of us that worked together, and you know, because you spend a lot of time at school or at work, that kind of becomes your network also, especially for me, 'cause I work so many different part-time jobs. I think at that point I hadn't worked so many part-time jobs. I think it was just that one. Maybe I might have had 2 jobs, part-time jobs, and that was one of them. And so we saw each other all the time, and so because there was a group of us, we started doing game night. And so instead of me partying and drinking, we would do game night. And I remember, and then because it was in the evening, it was like a dinner game night and potluck, and we bring food and do game night at his place. And I mean, we'd stay there until like 2 a.m. So I remember this one year I was driving home after game night, and I got pulled over by it was the first time I got pulled over by the police, and I freaked out. And it was because I didn't put my stickers, the tags of my license plate. I had them with me. I was waiting for my brother because he sliced them. And so I got pulled over by the police, and I freaked out, and I'm giving him the information he's wanting. And I noticed there was a certain point where I'm like, okay, I gave you everything that you wanted. Like, clearly I'm not breaking the law. And then he saw I had like a bunch of games on the passenger seat, and he's asking me questions about where I was, where I'm going. But then he stays a little longer, and I knew I'm like, oh, like he's gonna ask me out. Like there was this feeling, like, because he looked at my picture, and that picture was I look good in that one, the driver's license. I remember I really liked it. I was so bummed when I had to change that picture. But he says to me, he's just like, don't I know you? And I'm afraid to look up at him. I'm like, I don't know. And then and I was super nervous. And so he's just like, yeah, I know you. I'm like, well, I wouldn't know. So then he's like, what school you go to? And so then he's asking me a lot of questions. But then another police officer pulled up behind me. I was like, oh my gosh, like freaking out. I'm like, why is he still here? So there's this anxiety going on within me, and he's asking me questions at the same time. Questions that are just like more of wanting to get to know me. But then when the other police officer came up, then he said, he's everything okay? And he's like, oh yeah, here you go. You know, just make sure you put your stickers on. And I was like, okay, thanks. And then I drove away. Funny. It's funny how one memory just kind of starts, all these other memories. So anyway, so I dreamt of him. He was in my dream. He's getting ready, like suit and tie ready to go hang out with me. I'm like, why are you getting ready? We're just gonna go hang out. I haven't talked to him actually. We've been missing each other. He calls me when I'm working, and by then it's too late, and he's busy. He's has his family. So I usually leave him WhatsApp messages sometimes just to check in and see how he's doing. The other part of the dream that stood out was I was being presented with a new gift, a new spiritual gift. And there was fear. I was afraid of it. And that's all I remember. I'm trying to remember what type of gift. I just remember it was something spiritual. It was something new, and I was afraid of it. And it was something that I experienced before. And it had to do with the spirit world. But I just remember in my dream, I was like, I'm afraid of it. And I wasn't completely immersed. It was just like presented. Like, this is what's coming next. And there was fear. So I don't, everything's symbolic, right? For the most part. Everything's symbolic. Yeah. So I don't know if it's actually something related to the spirit world, or if it's just whatever's coming next I'm afraid of. But something is coming. Something is going to be presented to me that I'm going to be afraid of. And so I don't know if the dream is just preparing me for it. I don't know. So that was the only other thing that stood out from this dream. The only other thing I wanted to share was that last night when I went to bed, as I was going to bed, I was reflecting on the dream from yesterday and that realization and this whole daddy issue stuff, right? Of like, oh dang, like there's this theme of like, do I have like issues related to my dad, right? In terms of these situations with older men and or at least that part of like being attracted to older men, like, that maybe there was something going on in terms of my own relationship with my dad. I mean, it's not even an official term really, right? I mean, we just kind of used it loosely. But really just kind of like recognizing that for me, it's this theme of wanting to be taken care of, right? And or this belief that I needed to be taken care of. Really, this belief that I needed to be taken care of. Because the reality is that I can take care of myself, right? I can provide for myself. And there's power in that. Because then it loosens that need for someone else to be the provider of what you are needing, right? When you find it within yourself. And so I went to bed just thinking about it. I was like, oh dang, like all this stuff was triggered from that dream. Not realizing that the video that posted yesterday was on my relationship with my dad. It was the one where I'm crying, I'm here, and this connection with my dad being able to financially help me. And I've mentioned that I struggled asking for help. And so that was, the people that I share that story with, they know, like my dad would have been the last person that I went to for help, because I know his situation, and it's always been the other way, not always, but for many years, it was the other way around, where I was financially helping my dad out. I was so it's just, it'd been a long time that I hadn't gone to my dad for help. And so the video that I posted yesterday was about me reaching out for help and people knowing like, wow, you must have really needed help. And it was like, my dad was the last person that I went to for help. I exhausted all of the other options that I had first. And then knowing that I'm like, I don't want to go back to them because they've already helped me and I still need to pay them back. This is the one of my last resorts, really, of people that I'm like, okay, bite the bullet, ask for help. And so it's just interesting. I didn't realize the connection until last night when I went to bed. I was just like, oh dang. So yeah, so that was interesting. And just, realizing the cycle repeating itself in that respect. So yeah, that was it. Just that realization. It's gonna be a long work day today. I booked my break time because a lot of people had to move schedules around, and so I'll be working like a 10-hour day today. So we'll see how that goes. And yeah, all right, that's all for now. So we'll see what happens next. Hi. My name is Yubi, and in case you haven't figured it out, this footage is capturing my experience as I learn to navigate my personal spiritual awakening. I am learning that this experience is unique to each one of us. In whatever way we believe we we are embracing living our truth. This just happens to be my journey. And despite me having a graduate degree and a license in clinical social work, this by no means is intended to replace any type of mental health advice. This is just me on a personal level, documenting my experience, shedding light on the truth that I am learning and discovering for myself, and really inviting you along for the ride. If by some magical chance you find this content to be helpful in any way, shape, or form, please click the like button, share the message, subscribe to my YouTube channel. I have an Instagram account, a personal one, and one specifically for this channel that you're more than welcome to check out. I'm an open book. I have also created t-shirt designs. I'm wearing my favorite one right now, which is the North Node design, but I have that and other things that you can look at inspired by this process and journey, and I have the link in the description box as well as in the about section of my YouTube channel. So you're more than welcome to check those items out. Any type of support is great. Again, if you find this content really helpful or meaningful, sometimes when we take that step and be vulnerable, with showing what's inside our hearts and what's really our truth, we realize that we're much more connected than what we thought we were. And so I hope that as I'm living this experience and that you find some type of truth for yourself, or find some type of ability to heal in some way just by relating, just by knowing that you're not alone. That really has been my goal with this process, not just being able to connect with others, but really for my own healing. It's definitely been a therapeutic experience and a very creative one for myself. So I thank you, and I wish you all the best, and we'll see what else comes next for me.